Dragon Age: The Veilguard was the worst video game that I and many other people played in 2024. From the storytelling to the character development and even the atmosphere, none of it really felt like a genuine Dragon Age experience, but unfortunately, the developers behind this project cannot accept the fact that they suck at their jobs, and now they are blaming EA for the fact that this turned out to be a pile of trash, and of course, TheGamer is running this puff piece for them. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I understand that companies love to meddle in creatives' works, that the higher-ups say, oh no, we believe this is the future, this is the way that the industry is headed in. Oh, strong independent women might be a good selling point. Put a couple of those into your game, or oh, have it be a story that resembles something in some way, shape, or form to the real world. Whatever the case may be, higher-ups like to meddle. But unfortunately, the people that are writing in this industry right now are not particularly talented. Sure, some of them are, but the majority of them are not. And, well, when you are given parameters you have to follow, it is really your job to create something that is at least half decent, and with Veilgard, they didn't. And now we have them talking about how it was a sad end, but at least they got one. And they're talking about how basically everything is EA's fault, not the fact that they are the ones who wrote the bad story and the bad characters and bad dialogue. No, it's EA's fault. So, it says the past few months have been among the worst ever to be a BioWare fan, which is really saying something. After Veilguard failed to meet EA's sales expectations, it quickly became apparent that we won't be getting any new games for some time. It's not just that it didn't meet sales expectations, it's also the backlash surrounding this game. I think that sometimes games don't do as good as companies want, but they can recognize that there is still an opportunity there. They can recognize that there is still like a cult following, right? There's people who will buy and support these products no matter what, but they don't see that happening anymore because the older nostalgic fans of this series abandoned it and they didn't get this new modern audience that they were chasing. It says though, however bad it's been for us, it's increasingly obvious that it is far worse for the creatives who brought us these games, contrary to misinformation online. Of course, here we go. The Veilguard was not made by a completely new team and actually had many writers from previous entries, with some who have been with the studio as far back as Dragon Age Origins. They are all gone now. It's like I always say, just because someone created something great in the past doesn't mean they can in the future. Just because somebody might have written something that everybody absolutely loved 20 years ago doesn't mean in another 20 years that they are going to be able to still write at that same caliber, and that's fine. It is what it is. But you need to recognize the fact that, well, that doesn't make a game good or give a game almost more of a chance because they've simply been with a company for a very long time. What went wrong with Dragon Age: The Veilguard is the question on everyone's lips. Not really. I think that we know what went wrong with it. You had activists who wanted to push messaging into this product. They did not actually listen to the fans of the franchise. They wanted to chase a brand new audience, and ultimately, they didn't give a fuck about Dragon Age. They just cared about modernizing this franchise, and it turned out to be the worst case scenario possible. This game didn't make money, it didn't bring in an audience, and everybody got fired because it sucked so bad. Perhaps one day we'll get a big expose, just as we did with the state of BioWare in the 2010s. Right now, though, it certainly seems that something went wrong, or rather, that this was just the accumulation of years of mismanagement and a team that has always had to prove itself to its publisher, EA. Yeah, I mean, typically when you work for a company, you have to prove your worth to a company. Typically when you work for a company, you have to make a product that that company can make a return on. They're not just giving you $100,000 a year just for you to create absolutely nothing. Like, why do these people feel so entitled? Like, oh, this was our company once. This was our Dragon Age once, and they took it from us. It's all EA's fault. Maybe if you did a better job, you wouldn't be in this position. Just a thought. BioWare veteran and the Veilgard consultant Mark Darrah had hinted that there's more to the story than meets the eye. Back in February, he released a video in which he said that the developers were being targeted with hate. It might not necessarily be responsible for the decisions that players took issue with, but there were a lot of holes in his argument. First of all, he was basically saying that we need to be nice to every developer and we can't genuinely criticize them. Like, we cannot have heated discussions about the content that they are creating because otherwise it is called hatred and harassment and vitriol. It's not, oh, we're just criticizing what we feel is not good in a game. It just boils down to hatred. And second of all, he cannot accept the fact that maybe some of the people within these companies just suck at their jobs and that they are the reasons why this game turned out to be so bad. Ultimately, he does not put the blame on the team at all whatsoever. He could not fathom the idea that the developers just created something that people didn't like and maybe these people are not very good at their jobs. This is a big problem we have in the industry, is no one is willing to accept accountability. Nobody is able to admit the fact that, yeah, you know what, we created a really bad product. If they were able to do that, they would feel like they actually cared and were able to take feedback into consideration and kind of absorb our criticisms, but nobody really acts that way. Elsewhere in the video, he listed reasons why a game's writing could fall short without necessarily being the writer's fault. Typically, if writing sucks, it's the writer's fault. I'm sorry, that's just the way that it goes. Now, they were all hypotheticals, and he was not part of the writing team for the Veilguard. However, they do address criticisms that some of us had of the writing, that characters aren't as fleshed out as those from previous games, and that the tone is much lighter, so all major issues. But here we go into the list of problems. Dragon Age devs reportedly pitched ideas that were rejected by higher-ups. Members of the community council have also commented on the game's development. These fans were brought in to consult on the Veilguard mid-development, so they would have spoken to the team directly. They also allude to the team wanting to implement something that fans were after but not being able to. There were multiple content creators that shared this sentiment. I don't know, just thinking about what Dragon Age could have looked like if its management and overhead put more care and attention into the series instead of undermining devs at every opportunity, removing and moving management and not giving them the proper resources. I don't know what if. They even talk about how this game was a mess before Corinne Bush took over as the game's director, but I can't really give Corinne Bush much credit given the game still came out and it was still a major disaster. It was still a mess, so like I don't really know what they did to help this project come together, but it really didn't, at least in my opinion. Another person expanded on these feelings, saying, I have infinite love and respect for many of the former Dragon Age devs. It's been about 13 years since I started making BioWare content, later joining their creators program, and the team used to be so inspired and driven, happily talking to the community in their free time and going above and beyond to keep the game's essence alive. Over the years, it's been harrowing to watch that light burn out. The Dragon Age community bears a lot of resentment right now for how it all went down, but we all love the series and the community around it went to hell and back. It's a sad end, but in my opinion, at least we got one. And it also says, it was like watching BioWare crash out through an identity crisis, willfully and proudly abandoning the reasons why people love their games and upheld them as a safe space in the first place, and evidently permanently stunting them in the process. It's really infuriating to me that the people that were affiliated with this game cannot just accept the fact that, hey, we created a pile of trash that nobody ended up liking, and this community council is basically trying their hardest to defend BioWare and defend the bad writers that were a part of this project. So I'll be keeping my eye on if TheGamer gives any sort of response to this. I highly doubt it, but at this point in time, they basically wrote this puff piece for modern day BioWare activists talking about how hard of a time they had when it came to the development cycle of this game and how EA is a bunch of meanies. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.